They called it the Iron Frost. For 7 long years no one had seen a leaf on a tree or a blade of grass. The world was imprisoned in a grey cage, and people had forgotten the taste of warmth. The sun was merely a faded memory, whispered by elders over dying hearths. Legends told of Morkar, a king who feared his own end, and so he stole the dawn, locking it away in a crystal within the midnight tower. Alaric was the last hunter from the village in the foothills of the Black Crags. His bow was brittle from the cold, and his heart had long since grown numb. He hunted only shadows now, for the animals had either fled or frozen where they stood. That day, however, something happened that defied all reason. In the heart of the deepest woods, where the frost was hardest, Alaric saw a strange glow. It wasn't fire. It was something that did not exist in his world. He descended into the ravine and, beneath the layer of ice, he saw a small, smooth object. He brushed away the snow and gasped. It was a stone shaped like an egg, but it wasn't grey. It was a deep, vibrant blue laced with gold veins that pulsed with warmth. The moment he touched it, the ice around his boots melted instantly, and a single blade of grass pierced the earth, green as hope. "It's impossible," Alaric whispered, his breath for the first time in years not forming a cloud of steam. In that moment, a terrifying sound echoed through the forest. It wasn't the wind. It was the howl of Morkar's frostwalkers, creatures made of ice and malice. They felt the heat, they sensed the color, and they were coming for it. Alaric grabbed the blue stone and ran deeper into the forest, where the trees formed an impenetrable wall. He knew that if they caught him, the last spark of spring would be extinguished forever. He had no idea that this stone was more than an object. It was the key to the heart of a goddess who slept beneath the ice, waiting for the kiss of destiny. Alaric's heart thudded against his ribs like a trapped bird. Every breath hurt. The freezing air tore at his lungs as if he was swallowing razor blades. Behind him, the snap of branches and the metallic screech of ice against ice echoed through the woods. The frostwalkers were close. He could feel their cold breath on the back of his neck, not just a chill, but a void that sought to consume everything living. The blue egg in his pocket burned. It wasn't just heat. It was a vibration that seemed to speak to the rhythm of his heartbeat, further, deeper, beneath the roots. He tumbled through the thicket and slid down an icy slope, coming to a halt at the base of a massive, ancient oak whose branches looked like the twisted fingers of giants. At the tree's foot, a narrow opening gaped, veiled by a curtain of frozen briars. Without hesitation, Alaric lunged inside just as the blue-tinted eyes of the frostwalkers illuminated the forest above. Inside, there was silence, the kind of silence that did not exist in the world above. The cave beneath the tree's roots was carved from pure quartz, and in its center, upon a bed of white moss, she lay. She was imprisoned in a block of transparent, diamond-like ice. Her skin was as pale as moonlight, her lips the color of frozen raspberries, and her long hair, spread around her head, was black as the darkest night. Alaric stood frozen, unable to speak. In this dead world, where even the color of people's eyes had faded, she was an apparition of pure beauty. "Eostra," he whispered, not knowing how he knew the name. It surfaced from the depths of his memory like a forgotten lullaby. He pulled the blue egg from his pocket. Its glow was now so powerful that it illuminated the entire cavern. He pressed it against the block of ice. In that moment, a deep rumble shook the cave, as if the mountains themselves were shifting. The ice beneath the egg began to change color from white to clear, from clear to liquid. Alaric watched as cracks, looking like golden lightning, spread across the surface of the frozen prison. He had to act. He placed both hands on the ice and closed his eyes. He concentrated on every ounce of warmth he had left in his life, the memory of his mother's embrace, the taste of the first autumn harvest, the hope he felt when he first saw the blue stone. The ice exploded. Thousands of tiny shards flew across the cave, clinking against the walls like falling stars. Alaric caught the girl before she hit the cold ground. She was impossibly light, as if made of feathers and rain. Her eyelids fluttered. When she opened them, Alaric recoiled. Her eyes were not human. They were two gems blending emerald green with the color of the morning sky. She looked at him with a void that terrified him. "Where are the colors?" were her first words. Her voice was weak, like the rustle of dry leaves. "I feel only gray, and the hunger of my brother." "Your brother?" Alaric exhaled. "Morkar," she replied, attempting for the first time to move her fingers. Where her skin touched the ground, a small white snowdrop immediately grew. "He stole my cloak. My dawn, he imprisoned me so that spring would never come." Alaric helped her to her feet. He could feel the cave beginning to tremble. The frostwalkers outside had begun to batter the roots of the tree. Their claws scraped against the stone, and their freezing breath seeped inside like poisonous gas. "We must go, Eostra," Alaric said, handing her the blue egg. "If this is what you need to bring back spring, I will lead you to the Midnight Tower, even if I have to freeze into stone myself." Eostra looked at him, and for the first time, a shadow of something human appeared in her gaze. Compassion. "You are but a mortal, hunter. Why risk your soul for a goddess the world has forgotten?" "Because a world without you is not a home," Alaric replied, gripping her hand firmly. "It is only a grave." They burst from the cave just as the massive roots of the oak parted under the pressure of the ice. The frostwalkers, towering figures with bodies of translucent ice and fingers like icicles, lunged at them. Alaric drew his knife, but against beings from the old world, metal was almost useless. Every strike merely chipped away a piece of ice that immediately grew back. "Run!" Alaric roared at Eostra, trying to draw the attention of the three monsters, but Eostra did not move. She stood there, barefoot in the snow, clutching the blue egg tightly to her chest. Her gaze was fixed deep within the forest. Suddenly, a silver flash flickered between the trees. It wasn't a frostwalker. It was an animal, moving so fast it looked like a falling star gliding across the ground. A massive hare, with fur that glowed like liquid silver, dashed directly between Alaric and the monsters. As the hare leapt, its paws did not touch the snow. Instead, they created a circle of pure light in the air. The Frostwalkers recoiled, hissing in pain as if the light were burning them. The silver creature stopped before Eostra and bowed its head. "My old friend," Eostra whispered, a hint of joy appearing in her voice for the first time. "You survived Morkar's wrath." The hare did not answer with words, but a soft, trembling voice echoed in Alaric's mind. "Time is fading, Hunter. The shadows are closing in. Follow me to the place where frost does not sleep." Alaric, still in shock, grabbed Eostra, and together they ran after their glowing guide. The hare led them through paths that Alaric, despite knowing the forest like the back of his hand, had never seen. They passed through crevices between rocks that opened before them and leapt over streams that thawed for a split second beneath the hare's paws. Finally, they reached a hidden valley where a circle of ancient stone monoliths stood. Here the air was different. It smelled of damp earth and something Alaric had almost forgotten: hope. "They won't find us here," Eostra said, sinking onto one of the stones. "This place is protected by the old song of the earth." Alaric looked at the blue egg, now pulsing quietly on the stone. "What are these objects, Eostra? Why does Morkar fear them so much?" Eostra smiled sadly. "When Morkar stole my cloak, he tore it into 7 pieces. My cloak was not made of fabric. It was woven from the pure light and colors of the first morning. He cursed each piece into stone, letting it petrify in the frost. People later called these stones eggs, for they carry the seed of new life. This blue egg holds the color of the sky. But there are more. Red for the blood of the earth, green for the breath of the forest, gold for the warmth of the sun. Without them your power won't return," Alaric realized. "Exactly," Eostra nodded. "Every egg we find and set free returns a piece of the world's soul. Morkar hid them in the darkest places. But now we have him." She pointed to the silver hare, who was currently digging a small hole in the ground. The hare pulled another egg from the earth, this one glowing as bright red as a ruby. Alaric felt strength returning to his veins just by looking at it. "My messenger can sense them," Eostra explained. "But he cannot take them. They must be touched by a mortal hand that believes in spring, a hand that loves the world more than its own safety." Alaric looked at his calloused palms and then into Eostra's emerald eyes. He felt something break inside him. It was no longer just a quest for survival. It was a mission to save everything beautiful. "We will find them all," he said firmly, "and then we will show Morkar that the sun cannot be imprisoned forever." Eostra leaned toward him and for a second placed her cold hand on his cheek. Her touch wasn't freezing. It was like the first spring breeze. "Thank you, Alaric, but be careful. The more colors we awaken, the brighter we will shine in Morkar's dark eyes. We are becoming a beacon in his sea of darkness." A rumble echoed in the distance. The midnight tower on the horizon sent a black bolt of lightning into the sky. Morkar knew they had awakened, and his fury was ready to freeze the very stars themselves. The valley of monoliths fell behind them, and the landscape shifted into something Alaric had never seen even in his wildest dreams. They entered the glass forest. The trees here had no bark or leaves. They were carved from ice so pure that light passed through them like diamonds. Every movement, every breath was multiplied in thousands of mirrors around them. "Do not look at your reflections, Alaric," Eostra warned, her voice sounding like a warning bell in the freezing silence. "Morkar's frost does not attack the body here. It attacks the mind. This forest is woven from regrets and unfulfilled desires." Alaric nodded, but it was hard to resist. In every trunk he saw his face, but it was older, haggard with grief. He saw his village, too, as it was before the iron frost. He saw smoke from the chimneys, smelled the scent of freshly baked bread, and heard the laughter of children. For a second his knees buckled. The illusion of warmth was stronger than any sword. "Alaric, stop!" Eostra cried out. The hunter stopped just inches from a sharp glass thorn protruding from the ground. Had he taken another step in the trance of his memory, his heart would have been pierced. The silver hair thumped its paw impatiently, its glow momentarily shattering the surrounding illusions. "Why is it so hard?" Alaric exhaled, wiping sweat from his forehead, which immediately froze on his skin. "I felt it. It was so real." "Morkar knows you are tired," Eostra said, taking his hand for the first time. Her palm was cold, but deep beneath the skin he felt the pulse of ancient power. "He does not offer you evil. He offers you a peaceful end. He offers you the chance to give up and fall asleep in a beautiful dream. That is his most powerful weapon." They pressed deeper until they reached a place where the trees intertwined into a massive vault. In the center of this glass cathedral, frozen in a deep fissure in the earth, something green glowed. It was the green egg, the breath of the forest. But around it circled the shadows of oblivion, formless beings that looked like black tatters of smoke trapped in ice. "You must go there," Eostra whispered. "I cannot. My presence would only strengthen them. You are immortal, Alaric. Your will is the only thing that can drive them away." Alaric took a breath and stepped onto the icy bridge leading to the egg. As soon as his foot touched the surface, Morkar's voice echoed through the forest. It wasn't a scream. It was the soothing whisper of his own mother, who had died during the first winter of the frost. "Come to me, son. Put down that bow. You no longer have to fight. The world has been dead for a long time. You are only trying to breathe underwater. Close your eyes. Let the spring sleep. Nothing hurts in the frost." Alaric stopped. Tears welled in his eyes and immediately turned into frozen pearls. He saw his mother waving to him from the depths of the green egg. It was so tempting. To just touch, to just be consumed by that grey emptiness and forget the hunger, the fear, and the hopelessness. "Alaric!" Eostra's voice struck him like lightning. "Look at me!" Alaric turned his head. He saw Eostra standing there, a pale, fragile goddess who wouldn't survive an hour without him. He saw the silver hair shivering from the cold. He realized that if he gave up, it wasn't just his pain that would vanish. The chance for every child yet to be born would vanish. The color of every flower yet to bloom would vanish. My mother would never want me to give up. Alaric roared into the void. She loved the scent of rain more than her own life. He ran. The shadows of oblivion lunged at him, but Alaric did not fight them with a sword. He focused on the memory of the first green leaf he had seen in the cave. The color of emeralds flooded his mind. He fell to his knees by the egg and gripped it in his palms. In that moment, a shockwave of pure green light surged through the glass forest. The glass trees did not shatter, but they began to change. The ice turned into crystal sap. The ground beneath Alaric vibrated, and real deep green moss began to grow from the glass dust. Alaric lay there, exhausted, the egg pressed to his chest. Eostra ran to him and helped him up. When their eyes met, it was no longer just about duty. There was admiration. "You did it," she whispered. "You broke through my brother's greatest lie." "It was so close," Alaric admitted, still trembling. "I almost killed us all." "But you didn't," Eostra replied, and for the first time she lightly touched his forehead with her lips. It was a sacred kiss that poured the strength of 10 men into Alaric's veins. "You have more light in you than you think, Alaric of the Black Crags." The hare jumped joyfully and pointed north. The path had opened. But on the horizon, by the midnight tower, the clouds began to gather into the shape of a giant black fist. Morkar had stopped whispering. Now he was preparing to strike with all his might. The glass forest was left far behind like a glowing memory. Before them now loomed the midnight tower, a monolith of black ice that looked like a petrified bolt of lightning driven into the heart of the world. Here the frost did not sing. Here the frost screamed. The wind around the battlements carried the voices of those who had tried to stand against Morkar centuries ago, their souls now forming the very mortar of this fortress. Eostra grew weaker with every step. Her feet no longer left snowdrops in the ground. Instead they sank into ash. "I feel him, Alaric," she whispered, leaning against him for support. "Morkar's void is so thick here it steals the very breath from my lungs." Alaric wrapped his arm firmly around her shoulders. In his bag, 3 eggs now glowed blue, red, and green. Their heat burned his side, but it was the only thing keeping them alive. "We're almost there, Eostra. I see the gate." The gate of the midnight tower was not made of wood or iron. It was a wall of absolute darkness, rippling like the surface of a lake. The silver hair stopped before it, ears flattened against its head, its fur fading for the first time. "This is where the paths of animals end," the voice echoed in Alaric's mind. "Only the bearer of the colors may go further. I will guard the retreat, hunter. If you do not return by dawn, spring dies within me as well." Alaric stepped into the darkness. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the sound of the storm died. They found themselves in a vast hall where mirrored floors reflected only a pitch-black starless sky. At the end of the hall, on a throne of ice dragon bones, he sat, Morkar. He was no monster. He looked like a man with a face that was too perfect and too dead. His eyes were like two holes into the void. In his hands he held what they sought, the golden egg, the heart of the sun itself. Yet it was grey, lifeless, surrounded by icy thorns. "Little sister," Morkar spoke, his voice sounding like the grinding of stone. "Have you truly brought a mortal into my kingdom? Do you think this piece of flesh and bone can change the order of things? Winter is the final state. It is peace. It is silence. Life is but a noisy mistake trying to delay the inevitable." "Silence is not peace, Morkar," Eostra cried out, a flicker of blue light shining in her hand for a moment. "It is only the graveyard of your own loneliness." Morkar rose slowly from his throne. With every movement, the temperature in the room plummeted deeper below, freezing. Alaric felt the skin on his hands begin to crack. "You came for the light?" Morkar chuckled, pointing to the grey egg. "Then take it. But I warn you, the golden egg accepts no one who is not willing to give themselves away. It is the color of sacrifice. Are you ready for that, hunter? Are you ready to become the sun that burns so that others may see?" At that moment, Morkar waved his hand, and hundreds of frostwalkers stepped from the shadows. These were not just the ones from the forest. They were warriors in black armor, with swords so cold they would shatter steel. Alaric pulled the 3 glowing eggs from his bag and handed them to Eostra. "Hold them. I'll cover you until you reach the gold one." "Alaric, no! There are too many of them." "It doesn't matter," Alaric said, smiling at her for the first time. In that smile was all the love he felt for her, even knowing she was a goddess and he was but dust. "You are the spring, and spring must not fall." He drew his old knife and with a shout threw himself against the first line of black shadows. In the hall of the Midnight Tower a battle erupted, where the only light was the colors Alaric carried, and the only warmth the blood he was willing to spill. The hall of the Midnight Tower turned into a hell of ice and color. Alaric was no trained knight. He was a hunter. But in this moment, the strength of every generation that had ever survived a winter surged through his veins. His knife, now revitalized by the heat of the 3 eggs he had handed to Eostra, sliced through the black armor of the frostwalkers like a hot wire through butter. But there were too many. For every fallen foe, 2 more emerged from the shadows. "Run, Eostra!" Alaric roared, feeling something hot trickling down his side. It was blood, his own blood, bright red and steaming in that inhuman frost. Eostra approached the throne with every ounce of her remaining strength. Morkar stood over her like a black cloud, his eyes glowing with hatred. "Stop, wretched goddess!" he thundered. "That egg is dead! The sun went out the moment I gripped it in my palm. There is nothing in it but ash." Eostra touched the golden egg. It was as cold as a corpse. No pulse, no glow. She looked back at Alaric. She saw him fall to his knees. The black sword of one of the Frostwalkers had struck his shoulder, and his blood stained the floor of the hall crimson. "Alaric!" she screamed, her face reflecting a despair the world had not known for eons. Morkar laughed, a sound that cracked bones. "See, your champion is dying. His warmth is fading into my frost, and with him your hope will depart as well." Alaric looked up. Through the pain and the fog clouding his vision, he saw Eostra by the grey egg. He saw her tears falling onto the stone, freezing instantly. He realized what Morkar meant by the color of sacrifice. The golden egg wasn't broken. It was simply empty. It needed a spark that could only be given by a being who knows what death is, yet is not afraid to love. With one last, desperate effort, Alaric pushed himself off the ground. He ignored the pain, ignored the shadows clawing at his legs. He literally fought his way to the throne and threw himself upon the golden egg. "Alaric, no. It will burn you," Eostra cried. But it was too late. Alaric placed his bleeding palms on the grey stone. In that second, time stopped. Alaric felt no frost, no pain. He felt only infinite warmth. Every sunrise humanity had ever witnessed flashed before his eyes. He smelled the scent of hay, felt the warmth of summer rain, and the beat of Eostra's heart, which he loved more than his own life. "Take it," Alaric whispered into the stone. "Take everything I am. Just don't let the world freeze." The egg beneath his hands pulsed faintly at first. Then from its core came a sound like a child's laughter. The grey crust of the stone cracked, and a light so bright burst forth that even the shadows in the corners of the hall dissolved. Morkar roared, shielding his eyes. His body of black ice began to evaporate. "This is impossible! Mortal life cannot carry such weight." But Alaric did not let go. His blood, mingling with the golden light, turned into liquid gold. Eostra stepped toward him and placed her hands over his. In that moment, divine power merged with human sacrifice. The explosion was so powerful that the midnight tower shattered into 1,000 shards. The black clouds over the world were torn to pieces like an old rag. A golden beam shot toward the sky and, for the first time in 7 years, fell upon the frozen earth. Where the light touched, the ice vanished instantly. The black fortress collapsed, and Morkar, the Lord of Shadows, dissolved like morning mist driven away by the midday sun. As the dust and light settled, 2 people lay among the ruins. Eostra, her dress now woven from golden threads and spring flowers, and Alaric. He lay motionless, his face pale, and his hands scorched by divine fire. Eostra took him into her arms, and her weeping echoed through the empty landscape, which was beginning to breathe for the first time in years. The golden egg lay beside them, now glowing like a tiny sun. But what is the color of the sun when the one for whom it was meant to shine no longer opens his eyes? Eostra held Alaric's lifeless body, her weeping mingling with the warmth of the new morning. The golden egg, awakened by Alaric's sacrifice, glowed beside them on the ruins of the Black Throne. It wasn't just light. It was the pulse of life itself. "You gave me everything, Hunter of the Black Crags," Eostra whispered, pressing her forehead to his. "You gave the world its colors, even knowing they might burn you." She took the golden egg and placed it on Alaric's chest, directly over his silencing heart. In that moment, something miraculous happened. The golden light didn't spread outward. Instead, it soaked into Alaric's wounds. The scars on his hands did not vanish, but they began to glow like pure gold. Alaric took a deep breath, and for the first time in 7 years, his lungs filled with air that smelled of jasmine and damp earth. When he opened his eyes, he didn't see frost. He saw Eostra, her face illuminated by the true sun. "You're alive." Alaric exhaled, his voice weak but steady. "Spring is not so easily killed," Eostra smiled, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. "And a love capable of sacrifice is stronger than any winter." Together they stood on the mountain peak where the midnight tower once stood. Below them the valley was transforming before their eyes. Sheets of ice cracked open, revealing rivers that rushed into their beds with a roar of joy. Trees that had been dead skeletons for 7 years were covered in buds and young leaves within seconds. The silver hare ran to them, jumping joyfully. In its mouth it carried a willow branch with soft, furry pussy willows. "The people will ask what happened," Alaric said, looking at his village in the distance, where people were emerging from their homes without heavy furs for the first time in years. "They will remember," Eostra replied. "Every year when winter loses its power and the first ray of sun awakens the earth, they will celebrate this day, the day of the first dawn." Eostra then took the remaining magical eggs, blue, red, green, and gold, and scattered them to every corner of the world. Wherever they landed, the earth bloomed with the brightest colors. "We will teach them, Alaric," she continued. "We will teach people to paint eggs with the colors you saved. They will be symbols of hope that life always triumphs over death. And my silver messenger will secretly carry them as a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, the seed of a new beginning is hidden." Alaric and Eostra returned to the village. Alaric was no longer just a haunter of shadows. He became the guardian of spring. And Eostra? She chose to stay by his side. As a goddess, she gave up her solitude, and as a woman, she found her home. And so Easter was born, a holiday that bears the name of Eostra, but whose heart belongs to the courage of a man who wasn't afraid to believe in spring. Since then, whenever you see a colored egg or catch a glimpse of a silver hare in the morning dew, remember Alaric and his journey. For as long as love and sacrifice exist in the world, winter will never win. Spring is here, and with it, new life.